no sane person would plan a large event during COVID. You know what I mean? And
So
it was just unbelievable. It's like, considering all the things that happened, lightning came down on Friday, and it was lightning Friday, lightning Saturday, rain on Monday. The event was Sunday. We shut down, so now the delay, setting up the event is delayed, right? The LED walls weren't working, nothing was working. The amp rack, the rain took out one of the amp racks. These are major problems. You know what I mean? So again, we just kind of just roll with it. And at a certain point, I told my production guy, he was texting me. He's like, "I'm done." I'm like, "This guy, I've worked with the guy for 20 years." He's like, "I'm done." I'm like, "What do you mean you're done?" He's like, "I can't do this, man. This is too crazy." I'm like, "There's so much problems." I'm like, "This event was the most stressful event I ever had, ever in 20 years."
Together Again Winnipeg.
Together Again, yeah. So, I mean,
I think we're just going to start. Welcome back to Two Fries Podcast, where we document the rise and stardom of Winnipeg's talent and personalities. We may even be the #1 podcast in Winnipeg, but we're getting there.
We'll be there.
We will be there. We got a special guest for the Archdim. Why don't you introduce him?
Well, let's bring on our guest for today. He's been part of organizing Together Again Winnipeg. He's also the marketing director for Summer of Sound and an expert in his field. Please welcome Stephen Hua.
Let's go.
The man
himself.
The man himself is sitting right there.
Steven, you're a fascinating individual. We were doing some research before.
Okay.
And we realized you've been in this game as far as like event coordination for a while.
Yeah.
Give us some background on like how you got started and who you are so the people know.
Some background. I've been doing this for about 21 years now. First event I did was September 30th, 2000.
Wow, that was when I was born, man.
Yeah, my very first event.
Almost a year.
Yeah,
Or
21. Yeah, almost. 20. We were supposed to do 20-year anniversary last year. Was COVID, and this year will be 21. But that was a rave in Morris, Manitoba.
Yeah.
So 2,000 people is awesome. You know, it was just the beginning of like just doing it for fun, right? I've been doing this for a long time, but it's never been about really making money. It's about just kind of just making things happen for the city.
Yeah. Well, how did you, like, we talked about you started in 20 years ago now, but like, what was that initial start like for you? You know, like just starting up 2,000 people. Now you probably got like more than like.
No,
20.
back then, I think the funny story with that was I just love going to raves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I said, and my friends were like, "Oh, we love raves. Let's go." I was like, "We should plan one." And I was like, "Okay, we'll plan like a 500-person one." And my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "No, you know way more people than that. You like bigger rave. You a bigger one." Sure. It ended up being the biggest rave ever held in Manitoba.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it was good timing. I wouldn't take the credit for doing it. It was just kind of like the ballsy move of taking a chance to throw something that big. But it was at the time it was getting really popular. And 20 years later, still throwing parties. You know what I mean? I never would have thought.
How old were you when you first?
I was 20.
You were 20.
Yeah.
So our age. Like
Yeah,
we're 20
exactly.
right now.
100%. Yeah.
That's amazing.
20 years old. Did you have like a plan going in? Like
No, I had no idea what I was doing.
No?
No idea. Oh yeah, I was totally blind to what was happening. I had a mentor at the time, and he was. I didn't realize how blind he was, but I mean, he did teach me a few things for sure. But I think we're both new to it, right? We're just taking a chance, and you figure if you know enough people, you try it out and see people will come out, right?
Did you ever think it was going to be like your initial thoughts of having like a rave would be like someone's backyard, you know, like they set up in a park or something like that? Or like, was it you knew, oh, we had to get a venue, like we had
we had
DJs
the
and
venue.
everything?
Back then there was a lot of rules. You couldn't dance after 2 in the morning in the city. There was a rule about this, yeah. So then all my first parties, I just drove around the perimeter of the city and checked out all the hockey rinks and the community centers. So we did parties in Lorette, like hockey rink. We did a party in Morris Community Center. We did a party in all over. It was a different. It was wild times actually.
So talk about like the initial thing, because you're 20 years old, and you didn't know much about like event coordination, I'm sure.
No,
so then your mentor helped you a little bit, but did you get any other extra guidance, or was it over time you just learn how to do it?
You just learn over time, I think, after doing it a few times. The first time is kind of like, okay, well, how does this work? You know what I mean? It's like, just, okay, well, you got to book the DJs, you got to book the sound, the lights, and the basics, right? You don't realize later on, like, the details of how important it is that someone runs the door.
Yeah.
That's where the money is, you know what I mean? I didn't learn that until probably like 5, 6, 7 years later. You know what I mean? You don't think about that. Like, oh, wow, wait a minute. I do all this work, but I don't watch the door where the money is. You know what I mean? So it's details like that, and taking care of the guests and logistics and stuff that you don't think about when you're younger. I don't think, in the beginning, it's about throwing a party, right? So now we look at all the details, like Together Again and Summer of Sound, these events, we look at every single detail possible. So it's a different game now for sure, because we take it more serious as you get older, I think. But we learn a ton. Every event you learn, every single event, no matter what you go into, you think you know something. Life teaches you, smacks you in the back of the head and teaches you a lesson.
I mean, I'm sure you you have great stories of smacking back in the head.
Yeah, too many.
But like, honestly, starting at 20 years old, right? You're throwing your first party, you got mentors, you got everything. But why, like, I know you said just because you liked raves, you liked the atmosphere of going to the raves, but like, why specifically like music festivals and raves? Like, what got you peaking?
Just
in
love
that
the
interest?
music. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. That's kind of, again, dating myself even older, you know, back in my day, you know what I mean? Like, there was no EDM on the radio, you know, there was no, like, David Guetta, Tiesto's back then. There was just, you just love the music, so you want to promote it. How do you, back then I would get a CD or download an MP3 and be like, oh, you guys got to hear this, you got to hear this.
Yeah.
You know, you're excited about sharing this passion of this music, right? Which no one really heard of. And then eventually at that time, Sandstorm just came out and Blue just came out, I Feel 65. So these songs came on the radio. This is a big deal, right? So, but now it's you know, fast forward 20 years later, it's a completely different, you know, scenario in life with music, right? So this is like as mainstream as it gets. Yeah. But back then it wasn't like that. So it was more about just sharing the music and kind of being excited for that. And then now it's more the back then it was about sharing the music. Now it's literally about bringing people together. So now it's a very different like mission in what we're trying to do for sure. Like the mindset's very different because the music now it's there. You know what I mean? So now what's the next move, right? You want people to get together. You want people to have a good time. That's the motivation now for sure.
And so when did you realize? So you're just out of high school, I assume, 20 years old.
Yeah, I just dropped out of university.
So when did you realize like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
I've never realized that.
Never?
Still to this day. I just do it.
You just do it for fun?
I just do it for fun, yeah. I mean,
you just love.
2007 is when I took it somewhat serious. As the first year we did Tiesto, first time he came here at the convention center. So this is August 23rd, 2007, I believe. But at that time, this is the first time I got Heineken approaching me, Red Bull. You know, these are my first sponsors. You know what I mean? So wow, we're at the convention center. You know, we're no longer in a hockey rink in Lorette. You know what I mean? So it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
So at that time, you're like, maybe this could be a thing, you know. But again, I tried it for a few years to see if I could do it for a living. There's no stability. I mean, it's very hard to find a promoter that does it full time to feed his family. It's very difficult. So there's no stability. There's so much risk involved too, right? So how do you go into an event and all of a sudden you lose 50 grand and you know, how does that work, right? So I learned, again, by 2010, 2011, you have to have somewhat of a day job, right? This is definitely a passion project that has continued on for a long time, but can you make a living from it? It's possible, but I think we're all kind of promoters are not normal. We're all screwed, wired, a little bit weird. So, I mean, I think you can't do it full time as a living, but you do it because you love it, right?
You know, like convincing your parents, like, hey, man, I'm dropping out of university at 20 years old. Like, you know, like back then you have the set path. You have like, oh, I'm going to go to university, like get this degree, and this is going to be the rest of my life. What was that process like for you explaining like, hey, maybe university is not my vibe?
They definitely knew it wasn't my vibe. I've done fairly well in school, but just I'm all over the place, ADHD, and just kind of like just trying to find what I want to do. And again, in 2007, I was doing raves now for 7 years, right? So I was ready to quit. Funny enough, that same year, I was like, you know what? I've never got really an office job. I'm going to go to Future Shop. This is like before Best Buy. Like I'm going to sell computers. You know what I mean? Like I know enough people. Let's just get a day job. I'm going to get a resume written. And then Tiesto fell in my lap. I'm like, you know what? Okay, fine, we'll try this. And from there, promoting became a somewhat stable income stream. Like, you know, somewhat, you know, without the high risk events. You know what I mean? There is, you know, marketing there's always demand for marketing. You know, I mean, that's the thing right now. Promoters that have jobs now doing for different companies, right? But doing events is not it's just, again, it's a wild ride.
A lot of people see the final result, right?
Yeah.
We
talk about this all the time at the event. Yeah.
They see the videos of Snapchat or Instagram, people going nuts, but I don't think people realize how much time and work goes into actually planning. And how far ahead are you guys planning these events, and what is the process?
We
of
plan
planning?
Summer of Sound the week after it finishes.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, I'm sure some people in bigger cities, they plan their events 2 years ahead.
Sure.
You know what I mean, like you have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, because if you know what's going to be happening, you have to prepare yourself for it, right? So my calendar's got check boxes in which dates. Hey, Halloween falls on a Sunday this year. We know this already. But hey, look in 2023. You know, this June 30th is going to be on a Monday or whatever. We look at these things. You know what I mean? Because you have this. If you're doing this consistently, you have to plan, right? So, people will never fully understand what goes behind it, and that's kind of the fun of it. You know what I mean? Why do I want them to stress about what I'm stressing about? You know what I mean? Coming up a good time. That's my job, right? Yeah. At the same time, I wish everyone would plan at least one event in their life. You know what I mean? Whether it's I think once they plan their wedding social or their wedding, they get a small taste of like what it's like. You know, a lot of my friends are like, oh my God, this is crazy, this wedding social. I'm like, people are paying to come hang out with you for a wedding social. You know, there's no real risk involved, right? But your friends are planning you, for support system, and it's so stressful, so stressful. You know, take that to a different level. Put a couple $100,000 down and have no guarantee of anyone coming. You know what I mean? And weather and all these other things. You know, permits and dealing with artists. There's a million factors that cause a lot of stress here. So, but I mean, one day I'll probably go dig deeper into like what goes behind this. Like this event was the most stressful event I ever had in 20 years.
Together Again Winnipeg?
Together Again, yeah. So I mean, do I want everyone to kind of feel that? No, by any means. That's not something I want some people to go through. Would I love people to kind of appreciate that more? Of course, you know what I mean? Like with anyone putting together something, you want appreciation, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm a part of the socials committee at my university for engineering, and I gotten the chance to plan some social events, and like just the stress of that, nothing compared to what you guys have on a daily basis, right? I mean, like, how do you cope with that? You know, like last minute you could have artists canceled on you. You have a lot of liabilities that are in your hand, like you basically people's lives in your hand. You gotta make sure they're safe. How do you deal with that pressure?
Honestly, like the pressure is what I'm just used to, you know, and I never want to take away from someone's your stress of dealing your event versus mine. Sure. I may stress less. You know what I mean? You never know. Everyone handles pressure differently. Every situation is different, right? I've done, I would say I'd say 1,000 events. You know what I mean? Whether they've been small or big. Yeah. But so I don't really worry about every little one. You know what I mean? Sometimes people see me now, like an artist is like, you fast forward the first summer of the sound, someone's late and like, oh my God, like this, we're missing this off his rider. We got to get the freaking chopped bananas and the strawberries and we're going to go crazy. Now I'm like, fuck the strawberries. I'll eat the blueberries, move on. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? And that comes with experience. And again, sometimes they really, really want the freaking blueberries. You know what I mean? You got to deal with it, right? So you never know. I had one artist that was like adamant about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They were losing it. So I'm like literally leaving my event to go to like the 7-Eleven to buy this stuff and make this stuff for this guy, right? So it happens. But I mean, every event's different. Is this literally a new experience every single time?
I heard of you through the recent event, Together Again Winnipeg. You said that it was the most stressful one. How come? Why was that?
No sane person would plan a large event during COVID. You know what I mean? And it's you know what it is? It's a year and a half with no events. It's a year and a half with no one doing anything. And originally, Loud Luxury was booked for a drive-in event.
Okay.
We're like, cool. I'm like, there's no events. Let's try something out. I got this promoter itch. I've been sitting at home. I've been doing my marketing stuff, which I love. But I'm like, obviously, I miss people. I miss bringing people together. What can we do? We're looking around. What's working? Drive-in event. Cool. We book it. This is in spring, probably. I booked them for the fall, right? Okay. Restrictions are easing up. Like, okay, cool. We got an event now. They'll give us a permit for like 1,000 people, I think it was, but it's seated. Oh. Like, cool. We'll take it. Yeah. We'll try it. Yeah. Better than being in a car. We're sitting in a chair outside.
6
cool,
feet
right?
apart.
Yeah. No, not even. We're like now we're sitting outside, like the Bomber game, right?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, another month passes by. Like, oh, we can now no chairs. Yeah. We can stand, but we can't dance. You can dance, but there's no dance floor allowed. So don't get me started on that. That's the rule. Okay.
Okay.
You can dance, but you can't have a dance floor.
Okay.
Again, I'm like, you know what? Hey, we'll roll it.
So just like in your box, like
whatever. I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even know. I'm like, you know what? This is what it says. I'm just gonna roll with it. Right? It doesn't say you can't dance. It say you're not allowed. You don't need a chair, but I can't have a dance floor. So I'm like, I'm like gonna have a sign, a big sign that says this is not a dance floor. And if you dance, I don't know what to say. Right? That's not. So then from there, and then a month goes, 2 weeks, a month goes by again. It's like, hey, now we have no restrictions. Now it's kind of pretty much open. Yeah. And then a week before the event, oh, by the way, now there's restrictions. So it's just like, you know, now the crazy thing is there was crazy sales when this event launched. It was expected to be one of the biggest events I've ever done. Yeah. A week before the event, the city or the province released new restrictions. And obviously the COVID, it's a fluid thing, right? So we can never predict it, and it's nobody's fault. So all of a sudden now there's restrictions in place where gatherings are now from 1,500 to 500. So this goes viral, obviously, right? Everyone's like, what the heck, this event can be? Is there only 500 people there? Yeah. My inbox is blowing up, hundreds of messages, right? So we're like, no, we have an exemption. Obviously, sales start coming to a halt. It's really confusing. So it's the whole thing, like I said. And then there's permit delays because people, like, no one's working. You know, before it's like, it's routine. Yeah. Right? You do an event, you know what the systems to go through. So now we think, well, it's routine. We have our routine. But, you know, cities, permits, liquor commission, everything else. The routines are not new. People work from home. There's new policies, new rules, which we're not always aware of, right? So we got our permits late. The event was going to be canceled. No one knows this, and the event happens, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's great." I'm like, "Oh," it was just unbelievable. It's like, considering all the things that happened, lightning came down on Friday, and it was lightning Friday, lightning Saturday, rain on Monday. The event was Sunday.
Wow.
You were thinking it was going to rain.
Well, I mean, obviously. I mean, it's like, this is crazy. And there's nothing in the forecast. It comes up. There's no lightning in the forecast on Friday. Yeah. All of a sudden, there's lightning. We shut down. So now the delay, setting up the event is delayed, right? The LED walls weren't working. Nothing was working. The amp rack, the rain took out one of the amp racks. These are major problems. You know what I mean? So, again, we just kind of just roll with it. And at a certain point, I told my production guy, he was texting me. He's like, "I'm done." I'm like, "This guy, I've worked with this guy for 20 years." He's like, "I'm done." I'm like, "What do you mean you're done?" He's like, "I can't do this, man. This is too crazy." I'm like, "There's so much problems." I'm like, "We're going to get through it. Even if we have half the sound and no video wall, we're still going to do a party." So it's not the end of the world. We have to go through with this. We're already here. People will just have to understand, you're going to do your best. Obviously, it comes through. It always works out somehow. Video wall worked. The speakers worked. The event, there was sun. You know what I mean? Somehow it still worked out. But I mean, it's just if you could follow and see what happens all week, day by day, it's actually crazy. It's actually unbelievable what we went through, but to pull it off, and then it's great to see it. And at the end of the day, you see the results of your work, right? I mean, people had a great time, and that's what it's all about, right?
Hey yo, we interrupt this episode to bring you today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online community with thousands of classes in design, business, tech, and more. Anyone can join the millions of the members in the community to learn cutting-edge skills, network with peers, and discover new opportunities. If you'd like to support our show and are interested in Skillshare, click the first affiliate link in our description to get your 14-day free trial on us. It's quick, easy, and you can cancel it anytime. Now back to the episode. So what was that feeling like? Everything just kind of worked out, like from amps getting destroyed, like video walls not working, and then boom, sun's out, new day,
people
everything.
Start coming. People start
coming. What's that feeling like?
To me, I'll be honest with you, the feeling of it coming together, I'm kind of numb to the feeling of it coming together. Because I feel like if it does or it doesn't, I've kind of just accepted fate, whatever's going to happen. We do your best, and the sucks, you want to enjoy the event you put on. It's very seldom I get to enjoy my own events. You know what I mean? They're so stressful leading up to it. You get there, you're just kind of like relieved that it's happened. You want it to be over, what I mean? But you love, the best thing is like everyone has a good time. That's it. You see everyone be like, "Oh my God, we needed this. I can't believe that this felt so normal again." Like all those things, like you forget for one day, like what the craziness that is going on right now. You know what I mean? Like, so it's nice to be, normal again. People, at the end of the day, is like the city, the province, everyone, the world. That's like, we want to feel normal. Well, at the end of the day is people getting vaccinated, masks, and everything else. You can forget all the situation if you're there having a good time. You forget everything. So that's kind of like that's what it's about. That's the best part that's the best feeling of doing this.
And I'm sure you have a team as well, right?
I have an amazing team, yeah.
So talk about how the team came about. Are these people you've been with for a long, long time, or do you bring them on for like a certain?
Yeah, no, the team has been very consistent for the past, I would say, 6-7 years. I mean, there's some moving parts. I was a one-man army for a long, like in terms of like running the events, but my friends were my team for a long, long time, and I love my friends. But after a while, I realized like, well, I can't just keep asking my friends to help. This is a job, there's like I'm picking gum off the floor, and I'm cleaning like I'm doing there's a lot of dirty work that has to be done when you're doing a warehouse party, you know what I mean? And I just felt bad calling my friends to set up, move speakers and this and that, so I kind of made the commitment, if I'm going to do this, I have to not stop relying on friends, because it's not fair to make them like work the door and clean up. They should have a good time. That's the whole point. Or they've just kind of grown out of it, and they don't want to do it. Why put the pressure on them and the responsibility on them? It's not their job, right? Sure. So I started building a team and hiring staff, and it's been great. I mean, I've got my event managers have been around with me for the past 10 years. So everything I've done, I've always deferred to her. And from there, we built some other management staff. So there's about core 5-6 of us that will put together every event.
So shifting from that, like, hey, this is just like side passion, right? Passion job. Now you got a team with you. Now you got management. Like, where was that shift from a passion job to an entrepreneur opportunity? Like, I can actually make some serious money out of this.
Yeah, that was 2007. You know, it's funny, like literally the year. I've never like put together a resume. I've always been like somewhat like, you know, worked with friends or like had side jobs, this and that, but I've never had a job where I worked for a corporation, for example. I hadn't needed a resume to apply, right? So 2007, I literally was like, hey man, I gotta get a resume intact. I'm just done promoting, can't do it. And then Tiesto's team is like, hey, we want to come to Winnipeg. I'm like, oh, this is a very, at the time, he's the #1 DJ in the world. It's a big deal for him to come here, right? Sure. So I'm like, okay, so now I gotta try this Tiesto show. And then now you have Heineken sitting down with you finally. Red Bull comes to the city. This Red Bull's brand new. They're like, yeah, we'll take 100 tickets. We're gonna rent the upstairs part of the convention center. We want to do something really big and invite all the bar managers and restaurant managers. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, so now we got corporate money coming in. Tickets are now at the convention center. It's official, you know.
Yeah.
This is now they've got a big corporate. I got a corporation set up, you know, and I feel very legit, you know.
We made it.
We made it. Yeah, I feel like this is great, you know what I mean. And we actually made money on that event, so it was nice, you know what I mean. But again, you know, you do 4 or 5 events, you probably lose money on 40-50% of them or more, you know. So again, there's no stability, but we definitely feel that there's the potential there, you know. And where we are now is with the marketing is more like consulting, you know. Like I think that when it comes to going into a bar, I'm the guy that's being like, you should change this, do this, or I can help you with this. Your marketing should be this. I like to kind of help guide things along, and we do a lot of social media marketing and growth, so that's my focus, right? But so nightlife has never been consistent unless you own a bar. That transition from 2007, from like doing all these events and all these bars, I'm like, oh, hey man, I gotta own a bar. You know, like I gotta making all these bar owners money. I realized I'm sitting there, I'm like, wow, I just lost $5,000. I worked a month. This bar just made 20 grand. I'm like, oh, I'm on the wrong side of this right now, right? So then I opened a bar, and then from there, that was kind of when things kind of stabilized a little bit. Or so I thought, you know what I mean? So the bar opened a bar, Republic, my first club, was killing it, like 1,000 people a night, super busy club. Like you guys were still, like, you know, in elementary school, so I don't think you guys would know which club that is, but ask anyone older, they would know Republic. You know what I mean? So I mean, I've opened probably 10, 12 nightclubs since then, you know, enough for 3 lifetimes, you know, and I don't want to own any bars again, but I thought that was the end game. I'm like, hey, this is it. I tried throwing shows. It's too risky. Now I'm going to be the bar owner, take less risk, but it's even more risk now. So at one point I had like 4 or 5 clubs and clothing store. My rent every month was like 80 grand. You're like, oh, but you don't mind it when you're making money, but when you start losing money, you realize very quickly what overhead can do, right?
Wow. I'm just like shocked. Like,
I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about what, but I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I think I opened 3 or 4 businesses a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and not everyone obviously goes into a big, like I'll register something or I'll partner with someone and I'll start something, you know, like I said, my ADHD is to another level, right? But I just like learning new things, and there are probably better ways to just watch a YouTube video, you know what I mean, rather than open the business. But I like to, you know, experience it hands-on and see and try it out, right?
You're an entrepreneur at heart.
At heart, 100%. Right. You know, and then I think my famous last words would be, yeah, Winnipeg needs this. You know, and it's like, oh, like, we should try this. Winnipeg needs this. We should do this. You know what I mean? And it's like, does it really need it? You know what I mean? Or do you just want to do it yourself? You know, what is it? It's because it's missing in Winnipeg doesn't mean Winnipeg needs it. But that's kind of how I've always been. I opened a bubble tea place 20 years ago, you know, before bubble tea was even a thing. You know, it caught on probably 10 years ago. So we were so early to the game, you know, because I went to Simon Fraser in Vancouver when I left Winnipeg, when I graduated. So I brought bubble tea back and I did that rave. That's when I was 20, right? That was another disaster too. But again, I wish I'd done it now. Sure. You know, fast forward now, bubble tea is just everyone's buying. It's killing it. It's freaking. There's like 20 like Starbucks. You know what I mean? Back then, it was like the most obscure, weirdest thing. Like, what is this? What are you doing? You're weird. Like, well, who's buying? But some people that loved it, they liked it. They loved it, right? But everyone else is like they wouldn't even.
Everyday thing now, pretty much.
It's as normal as it gets. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's actually everywhere. Yeah. But we were so far ahead of the game, though.
We interrupt this episode to bring you another sponsor. If you've ever considered building a website, you've probably definitely heard of Squarespace. Squarespace is an online web designer that allows you to create your website from scratch using a wide range of templates. If you want to build an e-commerce site, a small business, Squarespace got it all. Click the affiliate link in our description to start building your website today. You'll be helping out the show and also creating a killer website to flex on your peers. Now back to the episode.
I feel like you gotta, okay, you said like, oh yeah, I could just watch like YouTube videos and, you know, like learn about business. But the thing is, you gotta know, like, hands-on experience is more key in business. Like, that's how you truly learn about business.
100%. I think if you ask any entrepreneur what his best lesson you've ever learned, he's never going to be like, "Oh, I read in this book. This is what I learned." Like, ask any entrepreneur, like, "What's your best lesson you ever learned?" Whatever he says, I'm like, "Did you actually experience it?" It's 100%. He felt it. He felt the pain of that lesson, and that's why it's the best lesson you ever learned. It wasn't like, "Oh, yeah, well, I brought this Instagram video, and this was the best lesson I ever learned." No, I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
because I could rifle off 3 or 4 lessons I've learned, and they all cut me deep. You know what I mean?
Let's hear it. I want to hear these lessons.
Like, just
we need the wisdom.
Facebook ads just.
No, I think the number one thing that my biggest lesson in life would be not scaling too quickly. A lot of us in any business that we do has always been, you want a couple lessons. I'll go into 2 only. I would say one is scaling too quickly. Is that we always want that office. We want the assistant. We want with the car. We all want these things. We're like, oh, I'm going to make this money, do this. You got to learn to do it with nothing. You got to learn to do it on your own as much as you can. That's what killed me was getting the office, was getting the assistant too early. I had 2 assistants at one point. I didn't even know what they were even doing. Honestly, I did not look back. I'm like, wow, like what a great job. Like literally was just never around, and they just organized my emails and a couple meetings. And but I mean, at the time I thought I really needed it, because you look online, you look on TV, and like, oh, well, busy people, they have assistants, they have all these things. But I think pushing yourself and breaking yourself, that's key. As much as you can, to learning your limits. And when you're young, that's when you have the energy to do it. You know what I mean? Like, push yourself as hard as you can. Like, work as hard as you can. Don't try to just find the shortcuts and spend costs that you don't need. Keep your costs as minimal as possible. If you absolutely need it, you get it. But you have to absolutely need it. You know what I mean? And that's my biggest mistakes. My second mistake was doing more is not always making more. That's probably the 2 lessons that I would always look back in time to like teach myself as much as I could. And when I had all these clubs, one of my mentors, at the time, just my friend, and I consider him a mentor because of the advice he gave. He's like, "Stephen, this is when everything collapsed and I lost, and now I'm like $1 million in debt." And he's like, "Why did you open all these clubs? Why did you open all these restaurants?" He's like, "Well, you had a restaurant. Deer & Elm is one of the busiest, best restaurants in the city. Was that restaurant making as much money as it could?" I'm like, "No." So why did you open a second one? He's like, "Well, I just want to make more money." I'm like, "Did you really want to make more money? Is that why?" I'm like, "Because if you want to make more money, you would just make the first restaurant busier, because it wasn't that busy yet. It was busy, but it could have been better.
Yeah.
You had 1 club that was busy. You opened 3 more. Is it because you realize, like, maybe now actually think about it, it was more of an ego move. I did it because I wanted to do it. I wanted to just do it, not because I want to make money. Because that's where we confuse ourselves a lot of times. Like, oh, I want to make money. I'm like, are you doing this to make money? Like, think about it. How does this making you more money? I had all these clubs. I was making less money. I could have just stayed home and not opened them, right? So you learn these things as you get older. My parents themselves, they've had, they own jewelry stores. They have 1 store, they have 5 stores. Same idea. Mom and dad, like, why did you open so many stores? Oh, we want to make more money. I'm like, we make more money now with 1 store. You don't realize you stretch your resources. You have all this overhead. You can only put your focus on so many things, right? So those are the 2 biggest lessons for me to learn. Like, I'll teach my kids and anyone I talk to, young entrepreneurs, keep these 2 things in mind for sure. Like, these are the lessons that I've learned, and I paid dearly, for sure. So I mean, and you'd be surprised that they're very simple lessons. They're not actually very complicating. You know what I mean? And everyone. But here's the thing, I don't believe anyone would actually listen. I think you have to go through it. You have to make the mistakes. So I always recommend make the mistakes as cheap as possible. That is.
We agree.
Yeah.
Make mistakes. It's okay because you'll learn from them. But make them. The mistake you learn from $1,000, 10,000 is almost the same from 100,000. You know what I mean? You just gotta feel it. You know what I mean? Once you feel it, you'll learn it.
We agree with that too. Like, the idea of toxic hustle, like, especially when, like, in our stages right now, we're just like, let's just go. Let's just try to make as much as we can, or like grind as hard as we can. One question I have is, many people we have peers as well who look into being like, oh, I can't make it in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's not the city. Winnipeg doesn't have the potential. What do you say to those people?
I'm surprised people still say that. I mean, I think there's 2 sides to that coin. I mean, I used to hate Winnipeg. Okay. I went to high school when I was growing up. I was like, I can't wait to get out of here. Hated it. Moved away to Vancouver. Homesick. Came back home. And I made a commitment to myself. I'm like, I'm not going to be the guy that's just going to complain about Winnipeg. I'm going to try to make a difference. And that's probably one of the driving forces of why I do what I do to this day. Because there's always going to be people being like, oh, Winnipeg sucks. Yeah. Well, you live here. You live here. You're not stuck here. you're mobile. You can leave anywhere. Why are you still here? You're here because Winnipeg's giving you an opportunity. You can afford the rent here. You have a job here. And you hate it here, like there's something wrong with that, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like we live in a great city with great people, the best people, and that's what makes the city great. And people still complain. They leave. Those people complain. People that complain about here, they'll complain everywhere. You know, to me, that's kind of a mindset that you should get out of, and you should appreciate where you're from. You know what I mean? And where, no matter where it is, whether it's here or whatever city, right? But because it's giving you a roof over your head, an opportunity to work. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that people saying that there's no opportunity, it's kind of almost an excuse. You know what I mean? Like you're making an excuse for not making it work. We obviously are a smaller market, but there's also benefits to that, right? And I think you have to find the right ways to maneuver it. It's not this people. I know people that move here, they network very quickly. You go to Toronto, good luck. You're not going to network as quick as here. You can send a guy a DM and he'll answer you here. You can go and meet someone here. You can go and meet the right people very quickly. Whereas in a bigger market, it's very hard to get those doors open, right? So of course the ceiling is somewhat lower here, but there's a lot of really rich people here. So I mean, you can't tell them the ceiling is low. They won't agree with you, right? So it really depends on what you're doing. I mean, I think it's more of an excuse to say like, oh, Winnipeg, this and that, but I find that's more of a personality trait of just complaining more than anything else.
I agree.
So how do you set yourself apart? I mean, like there's the market for clubs and promotion is so saturated. How do you set yourself apart in terms of like marketing schemes or the way you market your event that like allows you to see that success in terms of like Together Again or any other Summer of Sound events that you've had and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, we just try to be as unique as possible. You know, try different angles of marketing. Every year, like Summer of Sound, we try to hit like a new demographic. You know what I mean? Like we 4 years ago, we're gonna try to hit the industry crowd, and then we would try to hit like the fresh university, young university crowd. So last year, 2 years ago, our focus was to get out of city. So every year there's a new target. We're trying to grow the market for the Summer of Sound crowd. Let's say 500 people. So you're gonna try to let new people experience as much as possible, right? So it's always different things. With nightlife, it's just whatever keeps me not bored. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of like it's something different, you know. Right. So that's the main thing, to keep myself more mentally stimulated. I know clubs that are busy with very little marketing. You know, maybe I think that I probably overthink what needs to be done just because I just want to do something really cool, right? Yeah. I could put the same thing out, or I just try something different. And my mindset's always been like push the envelope, be unique, stand out. Is it really necessary all the time? Maybe not, you know what I mean? But sometimes we overthink it ourselves. You know, we need to do these things. I got to spend money on this flyer and video. You know, maybe more for ourselves than anybody else, right? It is obviously there's value in that, but there's also a value in what it costs. You know what I mean? Is it bringing in the returns of what it to justify what it actually costs to create, right? But again, I just do it because I enjoy it. I don't really look at it like where does it make sense to make money, right?
Yeah. How much are you consuming like new content, like as trends, or compared to like 20 years ago when you do it? The marketing now is completely different.
Yeah.
And how much are you consuming new trends, new apps, TikTok, stuff like that?
I would say I am slowly falling behind in my old age, for sure. I lean on younger people to kind of push. Again, if we're promoting to 18-22 market, nobody, like this comes to any marketing company, would ever believe you should know everything. You have to defer to the crowd themselves to speak and to understand, so you can understand them better, right? You have to listen. Like this is any marketing, politics, no matter any business. You know what I mean? You got to listen to your market, right? So I don't know TikTok. I know I have to get on it. I don't even know how to do an Instagram reel. I did my first reel, like last week. You know what I mean? So I'm just learning. And that's partially because I'm just kind of stepping away from that. I'm trying to do more into my other marketing business. But when it comes to, you have to keep up with the trends. Like you have to. If you don't, you get left behind. And people will recognize very quickly you're getting dated, right? If you don't keep up with these things.
Of course.
But yeah, my main strength is always trying to find, the right people that are knowledgeable, and just to defer to them. You have to trust people.
That's amazing. Any final, because I know we're running out of time.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. So in terms of like marketing nowadays, like do you rely in terms of like, let's say now we're in COVID stages, right?
Yeah.
Everything's opening semi back up. We don't have restrictions anymore in terms of like you have to be double vaxxed in order to enjoy life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how do you rely on word of mouth now, or is it just promoted on Instagram, or like
again, for me, like 20 years ago, there was message boards, like message groups online that you would go to find events. You put flyers in stores, flyers on windshields. It's never going to get any harder than that. You know what I mean? So any tool we have now, we still do some of that still to this day. But now, you know, with WhatsApp and Instagram chats and like WhatsApp groups, broadcast lists, and we do like, you know, there's chat bots for Facebook now that we use and Instagram chat. This is fancy stuff. There's obviously email lists, simple stuff like that. There's websites. We use everything. You have to hit everything. Honestly, it's overwhelming. I'll be honest with you. When it was so simple, it was difficult. Now there's so many tools, and that's what makes it that's what kind of makes it cool. You know, it's overwhelming, but at the same time, like that's why anyone can do it. You know, if you're grinding and hustling and really putting the work in, you can get the word out of anything, right? And it's all about creating hype when it comes to doing events and everything. But we do a lot. I mean, if there's a list, the list is like massive. You know, like the Summer of Sound promo checklist, for example. It's it's 100 items. You know what I mean? Like every radio station, newspaper, you know, be a PR. You do a press release. You got to do, you know, talking to different university groups. UW, Red River, U of M. Like there's a lot of angles. We very often can't even go through the list. You know, you just kind of do what you can, right? There's just so many ways to promote and reach out, and yeah.
How do you get in contact with these bigger artists or like bigger DJs? Like, man, you had like, Sound of Luxury came on to
Loud Luxury, yeah.
Sorry. I keep on mixing that up. Yeah. Loud Luxury came to Forever Again. Together Again. Man. Sorry, I keep mixing that up. But yeah, like how do you get in contact with those people, and like how do you promote that event for them?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually not the hardest part, because eventually once you have some credibility in the city, they kind of know which promoter they want to work with. You know what I mean? There's a certain point when you're a smaller artist, you'll have anyone kind of book you because you want to get booked, right? But I mean, I brought Drake here for the first time to the Centennial Concert Hall. You guys didn't know that.
Holy
yo! I wish we had more time.
Yeah,
I wish.
Yeah. No, I brought Lady Gaga here to a club, her first gig here in Winnipeg.
Yeah. Wow.
I brought Rick Ross, J. Cole.
Cole.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm a big fan of J. Cole.
LMFAO, Big Sean, like a lot. I brought a lot of artists. Yeah, we can go 10 more minutes if you want to talk about artists. You know,
yeah. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's go. Please give us that.
Yeah. So like again, so now rewind 20 years. We're doing just strictly raves. Obviously, I love all music, so we started doing some hip hop. I booked LMFAO to like their first big show in Winnipeg, and then we did a tour with them across Canada. Like I was like, oh man, I love these guys. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we like tried everywhere, Brooklyn to Calgary, brought them to Saskatoon. Rick Ross, I brought him to Saskatoon, Winnipeg as well. Drake, I was like a massive fan at the time. I remember one of my best friend's girlfriends like, you gotta listen to this guy, listen to this mixtape. And I'm like, this is cool. Like I really like this. I'm listening to him like, this guy's gonna blow up. Like I really feel it, right? So we get his first show in Winnipeg, and we're like, hey, who's doing the after party? So I bought the after party across Canada. So we did Edmonton, Vancouver, Saskatoon. I don't know if it's Saskatoon or not, Winnipeg. So I'm with these guys flying all these different cities, and I only met them like for half a second, right? But I'm a huge fan myself. But at the time, I was a bigger fan than I am now. Okay. You imagine. So I'm like, yo, I love your music and that, right? Yeah. And Winnipeg was the fastest selling show, sold out in the whole tour. Yeah. We sold out like in 5 minutes. Concert, right? So it was a crazy show. It was awesome. But again, it's different times, you know. Again, you just love these artists, you know. You back then I was more of a fanboy than I am now. Now I'm just old and kind of this whatever everything. But yeah, so I did a lot of cool shows back then, like, but I don't do them anymore. Again, a lot of risk, right? I mean, like hip hop shows, tons of risk. The Rick Ross show, I don't remember. Like most of these shows, I don't remember making any money on any of them. You know what I mean? To tell you the truth, except the Drake show, we made money because it was sold out, right? But again, it's a high ticket. And it was cool. It's cool to bring in Lady Gaga. And I remember like meeting Justin Bieber when he was like in high school. You know what I mean? Like all these different things. And this is back in this again. These are all 15, 20 years ago, right? But I wish I had the whole list of who we brought in. I don't even remember. But we brought in a lot of guys to the city.
Yeah. What would you say would be like the hardest part of like everything that you do, as far as organizing,
marketing, promoting?
What was the thing that you really would say that if you're trying to get into this business, this is what you should really focus on?
Oh, it's a lot of angles to it. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that the marketing is everything. Honestly, I think like obviously timing is important. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one show that I did, Flow Rider. Okay. I thought, do you guys know what Flow Rider is?
Yeah,
just want to make sure. Because when I brought him in, you guys this was probably 15 years ago. Yeah. Okay, so he had 3 #1 songs back to back at this time. Okay. Yeah. It was the biggest flop we ever did.
Really?
Ever.
Why?
Because I learned then that being hot doesn't mean you sell tickets. There's a big difference of an artist, you know, like that can just move tickets And there's a big difference in the artist that has a lot of radio hits. Yeah. Just because I like listening to you on the radio doesn't mean I actually want to see you perform. And it's a weird thing to understand that those things don't fully correlate. And I still don't get it to this day. Sure. I couldn't tell you, like, but there are artists that purely can sell hard tickets. But there are artists that just cannot move any tickets at all. Florida clearly, holy, didn't get for saying this, but at that time it was a really terrible show. Like we sold 50 tickets. You would never believe that, how it's possible. We were so confident, like, wow, we can't believe we got this guy. #1 songs nonstop. You know what I mean? Yeah. Didn't do well at all. Wow. So I think that at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this timing and marketing. You know, like you have to know how to sell these tickets. You have to know how to push people to go and hype. You know, there's a lot to it. I think it's a trickier thing than people think. You know, once you start trying it, you realize how difficult it is. But, you know, we've been doing pretty well with it overall. I mean, luckily there's more wins than losses, I think. But I mean, again, like it's just, we do it as it's more routine now for us, right?
Yeah. So last question, I know you got to get out of here as fast. This is one of my favorite questions to ask every guest that we have on is any tips for new entrepreneurs that are trying to get into this industry? What are some tips that you can provide to them?
Into this industry, like themselves?
Like even like the marketing industry, the promoting industry, or even general like entrepreneurships from your past, like your mistakes.
I want to provide value.
Any value that you can give to them.
When it comes to promoting, and I tell this to everybody, is own your crowd. Like learn your niche, whatever it may be. There's a big strength in anyone, whether you're gonna say I'm a hip hop promoter, and you just own that. You just commit to that. You know what I mean? I'm a Latino promoter. You know, like I'm gonna do Chinese events. Sure. If you become that guy, you now have some leverage. You now have some pull. You know, I mean, that's what you want. You want to be able to at least influence that crowd or understand that crowd. Right. Because it's hard to understand one person, let alone one crowd, let alone 10 crowds. You know what I mean? So for me, it was this EDM crowd. That was the thing that I bled. You know, that was my passion. I felt that I understood the most. So I invested in that's the most. And to this day, that's still what I feel I understand the most. And as you get older, you disconnect. That's why you have to learn. You have to have a good team to kind of like, you know, bounce ideas off. You know, you want to sit down and talk to people and learn more things, right? Because you can't, not one person can learn everything, right? So, and then the part of the other advice would be, you know, build a good team. You know, work with people you enjoy working with and find like-minded people to kind of push you along. And there's days you're not going to want to get out of bed and you want them to push you and find people that believe in you and that will kind of drag you when you up when you need it the most, right? So I think if you have those two things, you think you'll do all right.
On that note, I think this is the best way to end off the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our podcast. We're back on YouTube now, so click that subscribe button. We're live every Tuesdays at 11:30 a.m. on UMFN radio station 101.5 FM. We're also on all streaming platforms, so check out Stephen. Everything's in the description. And until next time, peace.
We'll get him back on for sure.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. We're done. That's it.